Morning, all. All right, so in between the second and third period between the Rangers and the Bruins, and yeah, I'm wearing a Chilliwack Chiefs jersey. There's a reason for that. So news from the NHL world today: Alex Stalock waived by the Minnesota Wild. This is likely so he can be sent to the taxi squad or to the AHL to get some games in. It'll be interesting to see if he clears. Stalock was good last year. Stalock was the better goaltender between he and Dubnik. There are teams that need a goaltender. I would not be surprised to see Stalock, who's on a very team-friendly cap hit, end up getting picked up. I do think he might be better than what some teams have had in goal so far this year. And Brett Connolly waived by Florida. We've kind of seen this coming. So Connolly, a couple years ago, there was a lot of talk about how he was one of the better players in the league because of his scoring per minutes played. So you look at goals and points per 60, be like, he's just great. Look at this. And I always look at that and I go, okay, let's just take that with a grain of salt. It means he's being deployed very well. Let's take a look at who he's playing with. Let's, keep it realistic. So that's where the stats, it's great to have all these advanced stats telling you Connolly was a great pickup for them. And last year he produced pretty well for Florida, but this year it's been a turn. And so I'm not surprised he's been waived. I don't think he gets picked up. I'd be kind of surprised if he gets picked up. Although, again, if somebody thinks they can maybe get his goal scoring going again, maybe, but we'll see. The NHL is looking at, and it's this NBA Top Shot thing. There was an article on ESPN a couple days ago. Last night, Elliot Friedman talked about it. It's this blockchain idea. It's, I honestly, I don't really see the point. It's kind of like there's this moment and they have this watermark, so it's uniquely your moment, and you buy it, then you can resell it. And so the NHL's looking at doing their own version of that. So the NBA's had it and it's generated a lot of money, a lot of revenue. And right now, of course, sports looking for extra revenues. I honestly have no interest in any of it. I really could not possibly have less interest in anything, which is fine because as a hockey card collector, I'm well aware that me collecting hockey cards is something that there's plenty of people around the sports world they had no interest in either. So if it's a way that the NHL can generate more revenue and they can figure out a way to make it work, and if you end up owning a goal celebration by Connor McDavid, kudos. It's interesting. I did look through the NBA Top Shot website and at some of the ones they had that are like $1 and all this. And it is a market. It's basically you buy it and then you might be able to resell it for more money later, or it may drop in value. So again, it's odd to me, but if that's something that people really want to do and they want to get into that side of it, it's another way of gambling. And it's the part of hockey card collecting I honestly don't really care about. Like for the Tim Hortons, I won a Jack Eichel card that I guess is worth money. I was like, okay. So I got it in the mail and I was kind of, eh. And I don't know what it's worth. Someday when I'm gone, people will go through my collection and go, wow, this is worth this amount of money. Shannon had no idea. Yeah, because he didn't care. So yeah, this is not something that would necessarily appeal to me either. I learned through decades of being a collector, it's more important what something's worth to you than what it's going to be worth later, because you can't guarantee what it's going to be worth later. So make sure it's worth it to you when you make that purchase. A trade that, and this is why I don't do trade speculation, but I can tell you this: Jake Virtanen for Danton Heinen. I don't even understand this trade at all. But the Canucks don't have any cap space. So the idea of adding cap by picking up Heinen, who makes more money than Virtanen. Also, Danton Heinen's a restricted free agent this summer, so you have to qualify him. And I could see this. Here's what I think would happen. Okay, so let's just say this went through. Jake Virtanen goes to Anaheim. Heinen goes to Vancouver. Jake Virtanen rediscovers his scoring touch playing on the Anaheim Ducks, a team that might suit him perfectly. Danton Heinen comes to Vancouver, has his struggles. After 2 weeks in quarantine, joins the team, kind of out of sync. And at the end of the year, the Canucks don't qualify him. And they say, well, we're going to circle back, and we're not going to qualify him because we don't want to spend that amount of money. But we're going to circle back and see if we can get him at a lower cap hit. And then on day one of unrestricted free agency, he signs with Calgary. And then we all act like we're surprised. And he signs with Calgary for like $1.25 million. At which point Benning's going, we offered him 2. So in terms of the numbers for Tannen's an RFA next year, 2022, he's got 1 goal in 19 games. He's been mostly invisible. 298 career games, 51 goals, 45 assists, 96 points. Danton Heinen, 17 games, 3 goals, 3 assists, 6 points. He's got flashes of offense here and there. I liked him in Boston, but it's just not consistent enough. 246 career games, 40 goals, 73 assists, 113 points. So it's not happening. Elliot Friedman said last night it wasn't happening. Apparently, there was a whole lot of buzz about it. But again, I don't do the speculation thing. But just looking at it on the surface, I'm not sure I understand. You're picking up a guy in Heinen with a higher cap hit who doesn't have the potential of Jake Virtanen. And I'm saying that as somebody who's a Boston fan. So, it just doesn't make sense to me. Speaking of things that just don't make sense and not having nice things, Nico Hischier's day-to-day. He took a puck to the visor yesterday, and so it could very well be that cut. They want to keep him out of the lineup for a little bit until that heals up. It may very well be that he was concussed. Hey, you take a puck, even if it's in the visor, that can have enough of an effect that you may have concussion after. So we'll see. Hopefully it's nothing major, but I know after only 5 games played for him to be out already, that's a tough break. The talk out of last night's games, of course, was all about Jordan Binnington, and I got it. I understood what he was doing. Here's what Craig Berube said. He's a fiery guy. That's the way he is. He's trying to rally the team. That's what he's trying to do. And Zach Sanford, after the game, said it did fire the team up. They won the game 7-6. And I remember a time where you didn't crash the net for 2 reasons. One, the posts were attached. Yeah, guys didn't crash through the net so much when those posts were attached to the ice and they wouldn't come out. You'd be surprised how much guys will avoid running over the goalie if they know they'll die when they hit the posts. And the other thing was goalies would swing their stick. Goalies would protect the crease. And there wasn't a lot of penalties called for it either, where goalies would protect the crease, where you could get away with those slashes and think maybe a punch to the back of the head kind of thing for a guy getting too close to the net. I don't think there's enough goalies that have that kind of fire. And here's the problem. So people last night were like, oh, what a whiner and what a baby. And having watched teams for years, and when they're failing or they're just not meeting expectations, it is most difficult when it looks like they don't care. The most difficult time is when they're losing game after game after game, and it looks like they just don't care. They say all the right things to the media, but then you watch them on the ice, and they're just going through the motions, and it feels like they don't care if they're losing. Jordan Binnington's not a guy who you would say doesn't care about losing. Does he go over the top? Absolutely. Did he take his blocker or his glove off last night? Nah. Was he really trying to start a fight? No. He was trying to fire up the team, and that was obvious. That was really, really obvious. Devin Dubnyk apparently told him just get off the ice, calm down. But they did win the game. So, again, and when you look at Binnington and people getting mad about how he was during the 2019 playoffs, right, and then they won the Stanley Cup. So, it does fire up the team, and it's nice to see somebody actually give a damn. Because there are times where you're watching and you're like, okay, they're behind 5-1, and I don't want to see like a huge bench-clearing brawl, but at least act like you care that you're getting humiliated again. That's what gets really frustrating. Interesting news with the Vegas Golden Knights, and I'm not sure how to take this either. This is some weird news on this board today. They ended a deal with a company called You Pick Trade 3 days after they started it, and it's a company that sells sports betting picks. So there was going to be this whole, okay, you guys, Vegas fans, use You Pick Trade, and they were going to have all kinds of advertising all over T-Mobile, the Fortress as it's better known. And 3 days later, Vegas goes, nah. So I don't know why. I don't know what it is, but they've just decided we're not going to do it. You Pick Trade's already come out and said, we're stunned. We just started. Just imagine that, that you start something and 3 days later, the person you entered into a contract with goes, I've decided to go in another direction. We haven't even started yet, but we have. And I've decided to go in another direction. So that's weird. But the whole pairing up of sports teams and betting companies, just those two things together tells me eventually at some point we're going to end up with some kind of controversy. I'm waiting for it. I'm not sure where, I'm not sure when, I'm not sure what kind of controversy we'll see, but just gambling and sports together always seems like it at some point there'll be some kind of they threw that game because they made more money if they threw it than if they won it. But yeah, speaking of the National Hockey League, too, teams are continuing to push. So there's no real news on this. It's just that teams are still pushing to push the draft back, while the NHL is trying to figure out the logistics of that. It is not as simple as just saying, all right, well, we'll just move it back, because you have to deal with when players hit unrestricted free agency, how that's going to affect these players for that 1 year. And again, there may be a pushback for the draft into, say, October. I don't know that they can push it a full year. They've already got it pushed into July. I don't know that they can push it a full year. And if they do, it's going to require them to jump through a bunch of hoops. And in the end, the NHL is going to make the decision. Teams can be mad about it. I mean, teams can opt out. You could see, like in July, teams saying we're not gonna participate in the draft. And I would expect that draft picks in 2021 will not get traded until we know what's going to happen with the draft. Most of the draft picks that have been involved since we saw the return to play have been 2022 picks, and that's why. The 2021 draft is just this great unknown, and maybe that's what happens. Maybe they say, well, we can't push it back any further, and we see 5 or 6 teams say, well, then we're going to just back out. So it's going to be very interesting to see, because again, they're not getting the kind of time to look at players who aren't even playing yet. Maybe they don't get to play this year. On that note, women's hockey is on tonight on Sportsnet and the NHL Network. The PWHPA has a game on tonight at MSG. It's the first time they've played at Madison Square Garden, and being on the NHL Network, and I think it's on Sportsnet 1. That's pretty cool. So, yeah, I wish them all the best. And, of course, this is on the heels of the NWHL's tournament falling apart. So this is that 1-2 punch where the league that the PWHPA isn't against, but they're not really for, now they get to counterpunch that, and we'll see how things go. And, of course, it's a tour. It's not the same thing as what was going on with the NWHL. We'll see how it goes for them. I wish them the best of luck. BCHL. So the reason I'm wearing Chilliwack Chiefs. First off, I've been making purchases here and there from the Chilliwack Chiefs because I understand the BCHL right now. Things are really, really up in the air. And BC teams are still in limbo. So basically, every provincial government has figured out a way to make junior hockey happen. BC is not. And from what's being reported, it sounds like the BC government isn't really interested in even talking about the BCHL and the WHL. And the BCHL is strictly, BC hockey. So there's a lot of behind the scenes upset, it seems. And I don't know how much there really is or isn't. But the fact that the BC government hasn't said a word, they actually came out, and the closest we get is hearing that they hadn't had a proposal submitted, which is untrue. So, yeah, I don't know what the BC teams are going to do. But that is definitely tied to teams pushing for a draft delay. There are a lot of prospects in the WHL that would play for Canadian teams in BC that may not have any way to play this year, or they may have to figure something else out. And it's a shame. It's a real shame, because I think we've seen that sports, when it's properly managed and players buy in, that it can be done safely, and that for these kids the risk is relatively low. Again, as long as they're being safe and everything else. And so this is an impasse that feels like it's just going to go through. And I don't know if it's one of those things where the government legit wants further negotiations, or if they just are going to ignore it and hope it goes away. But either way, it's still there. I would like to see them figure out something so the BCHL and the WHL in BC can exist and can have some sort of season, some sort of shortened 20-game tournament, something like that. But we'll see what they do. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below, as always. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe if you're browsing your way through. You just happened upon this video. And it's kind of nice now that I have Chilliwack jerseys, so that when we can have Chilliwack back and have fans in attendance, I can go down the street and watch some Chilliwack games. That sounds like fun. All right. Thank you guys so much for watching, for all your support. I'll talk to you again soon.